Tesla Native Podcast, LA Native Podcast. What's crack a
Yo,
lacking?
yo, yo.
What is going on, fam?
La Sokamatli.
Yo, man, we've been doing really well. Our last like 3-4 episodes, everyone's like really honing in on what you got to say, Zero.
Right on, man. And we're all just sharing information. I don't know more than anyone else. Like, I just, we had a conversation earlier today, me and and Daniel, and we started going over certain things that were important, like, perspective. Perspective is a very important tool in your life. And to kind of get a hold of it and understand what it is, because some people don't even know what it is. And when you don't have a hold of your perspective, that's when the narrative gets thrown at you, right? And you believe the narrative, whatever that narrative is. It could be multimedia, it could be, newspapers, magazines, any information that can guide your thought process, right? That's it. You have a thought process. If you don't have perspective. Everyone has perspective, but if you don't know what it is, like my perspective is rooted in nature, right? Because our ancestors rooted everything in nature. Everything that I believe in, that I cherish, comes from nature, right? And that's why it's important to kind of grab hold of what you call perspective, right? Like good and bad. Evil, good and evil, right? Stuff like that. And it's important to understand that when we talk about perspective, that one's perspective is personal. It's a personal thing, So if you ever hear anything on this show, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just trying to share my view of the world with everyone. That's just my personal view of the world. Right? And everyone has that. Everyone has their own personal view of the world. That's why some people may like what I say and some people may not like what I say. It's okay. I understand. That's just basically what we want to get to. And as Daniel comes into the show in a little bit, we're going to go over these very important things that hold our perspective, right? And there's some cool things that happen on, just to give you a little insight of what we're going to start to discuss in a few seconds. But, Mondo, did you hear about the fucking embassy? Out of all the countries.
In Mexico, right?
Right. Out of all the countries, bro. Out of all the fucking countries in the planet. Mexico. Who got Molotov cocktailed? Mexico. Mexico's embassies for people who are murdering children, for people who have no regard and understanding of the past atrocities that happen when you're a colonial settler, dominant, destructive force.
Now, but does Mexico really have influence like that?
It's not so much that what it is that
it just people had enough, right?
Well, no, they understand, like, what the beautiful part of Mexico is that they understand poverty. They understand colonialism, right?
Even the cartels are like, yo, fucking Israel, you guys have to relax. You know what I'm saying? Right?
Whoa, I didn't hear that, but if fucking...
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Dude.
Because fuck, dude, what Israel's doing is more than gangster, bro. It's just...
there's no
brutality.
There's no
right?
word. There's no words for it, especially the recent attacks that have been happening. And I also want to. That's another part of what I wanted to discuss. What I want to discuss today is that there's a few things that happen in the news. Mm-hmm. Like there was a person that was running for the president of the United States who was writing on bombs. Right? We can look up all these articles and shit. And then, and also want to talk about, pull up the article or pull up the news about Mexico making a statement about the genocide of people and the murdering of children and women, and the destruction of people who basically, and all this talk, and this is where perspective really kind of gets a hold of things. Right? Because earlier on, in a few weeks ago, we were talking about, remember when we were talking about The student protesters.
Protests, yeah.
The student protest. And what were the newscasters saying, right? The newscasters were saying anti-Israel protesters, right? Anti-Israel. It wasn't pro-Palestine, pro-Palestine, no murdering of children, no raping of women, no, desecrating sacred lands. That's what they're protesting. They want people to be on the side of people who are just trying to be humanitarian. But the narrative gets stolen by people who are trying to push an agenda to eradicate individuals from their homeland. No one is going to be more in tune with that than Mexico, because they've had that happen to them. And no one should be more in tune than the Native Americans from Northern California. From northern, the United States. I don't even want to say the word America. I'm just trying to avoid America. Look at that. Are you kidding me, man? They're going ham, bro. They're like throwing Molotov cocktails at this place. They're throwing rocks. This is Mexico. Is it Mexico City or someplace in Mexico? I don't know where exactly.
That's Mexico. I think that's Mexico City. Yeah.
They don't mess around over there. There's unity in the streets. It's not so much, Armando, that they're like they're making a statement, bro. Like, don't murder children. And this is just the result of individuals who feel like they can continue on with this warlike mentality, right? Like the world, being a young person, Sky, what's your opinion on war? How do you view war?
I think it's a means of financial income for governments.
Right.
That's what I see it as. I see it as just utter destruction.
So
I don't
then
think there's
how,
a place for it.
So what is your perspective of looking at the graphic footage that is coming from this area in the planet? This area of Mamatonansi. Before you answer that, though, I want to put in perspective what we feel the land is. This is my perspective of the land. It has no borders. It has no rulers. Although it does, those are imposed by force, violence, theft, and the misguiding of a narrative. How can we be in this time and studied all the history books of the past and understand the devastation that comes with war and violence, and we continue to see this? Now we're seeing it in real time. Like, it's important to know what the younger generation sees, and they already see it. So I didn't have to explain to Sky that, oh, wow, this is all for economic gain.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the Israeli embassy that got.
No, yeah. It was
burned down.
they targeted the Israeli embassy. Like, this is what I love about Mexico. Is like they like making statements. This statement is for the world to see that even the poorest third world country disagrees with this. And that if we allow it to happen, if we allow it and not say anything, that it could happen to us. All they have to do is put a good media campaign together, and you'll see the results of what that is. That's why it's so important to really get a hold of what you call perspective, right? Because I feel that people that are confused about what's happening in this part of Mother Earth, they don't know how to handle that type of, like back in the days in the 40s and the 50s, you would get a little clip of it, right? Because that's all that was there. Like whoever was able to record it on whatever device they had, or read about it in the newspaper. But still then, there's an editor, there's a writer. Good Morning Vietnam, if you haven't seen that movie, go see that movie, Good Morning Vietnam, starring Robin Williams. And you'll see how even the news during the Vietnam era was edited. They would cross things out. Don't say this. Don't say that. And go see that movie. Go see that movie, and then go watch the news, and you'll start to see the picture become clearer. What's up, Daniel?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
So, how do you feel about what's going down in Mexico? Like they straight up burnt down the Israeli embassy, Daniel.
Well, people are reacting. I mean, it's what's interesting. You think about it. It's just how would that have been in the United States? How would they have reacted to them? Because I think it's also too. You
That
got
would have been riot. Oh my God, that would have been 40 people would have died.
and that's the thing is that you got to look at because part of what's interesting too is I've been keeping up with it in Mexico with the elections for the president. They're talking about a lot of the people don't want a police state anymore. Because after 9/11, Mexico, and then also, Ruben, you said something, and I don't know if you said Mexico as a third world country, and I'm going to make sure that you make something clear. What is a third world country? Do you know how they categorize that?
Just a poor country. That's what I was referring to.
Well, I think it said in the World War II when the countries that were sided with the Allies were considered the first world, and so anyone that didn't side with them weren't considered the first world, and they were part of maybe the axis of evil, they called it, And so what's interesting is that they use that word, third world, but Mexico is not a third world country. Mexico sided with the U.S., so it's just a term, again, too, like many terms that we use politically and such, just to kind of trigger this idea that somehow Mexico is lesser politically, and if anything, it's considered lesser politically. It's declared war on no country. It's not, the last war it had was against France, and that's the war for independence.
Right.
And even the war with the United States wasn't a war.
I guess just to be clear, it was more about the third world reference was just about. That's what I've heard.
No, right, Ruben.
This is what I heard intellectual circles call.
And it's what they refer to, Ruben. And I just call it out because it's like you said, perspective. Think about how that adds to the perspective that,
according to Forbes, there's more millionaires in Mexico than the US.
Which is truth. Mondo, exactly, brother. That's the type of facts that, that, and it's true. In Mexico, a lot of millionaires, man, because it's just the separation between the middle class and the wealth and the lower class is huge in Mexico.
Big time. Yeah, it's almost like India. Like India is that way.
And that's why you said that the people understand oppression in Mexico, and right now it's a big factor in the elections. And so, but again, I think that it's just interesting the perspective and the perception that we get here in the United States, because I think too.
Mondo, look up the word perspective. Can you look it up in the dictionary?
Hey, but so the thing is that it's a very interesting statement. But also too, if you also noticed, they're also joining litigation against Israel. That South Africa as well. These countries that have been under oppression for hundreds of years are the first ones to clearly say, "Hey, this is a genocide occurring," because they know they have the experience of it.
That's common sense. It's
a particular attitude towards or way of regarding something, a point of view.
Right, a point of view. Who's guiding the point of view? That's a perfect. I'm glad that we pulled that up. Right, the point, the beginning, the arrowhead. What is it? Who's driving the force? Right.
Think of the word invasion as opposed to discovery.
Right.
Same action. It's just your perspective,
Right. And this is, I'm feeling like something regarding this topic, right? Because when you tackle the point of view of anyone, right, that's when you get a group-like mentality or mob, right? So if no one ever takes a hold of their perspective and follows anyone's point of view, whether it be a TV show, a newscast, a speaker, whatever, when you go listen to a speaker, now we know, we just defined that he's taking we're listening to his point of view. So he's directing us, right?
Right.
So remember that when they say anti-Israel protesters, that's the point of view. This is a critical thinking time. This is where we're going to have to get in deep with each other and understand right here in this circle, Daniel, Armando, Sky, me, we all have our own point of view. We don't read magazines and don't watch TV shows to get a point of view, because we have hold of our perspective through our ancestral ways. And we'll get into it more with Daniel, right? Looking at the calendario and understanding what that is, right?
Well, and I think, Ruben, what you're talking about, to me, I also think of it as the narrative. Who owns the narrative? Who decides who's the peacemaker and who's the murderer here? Because you think about it, the United States can be saying it is spreading democracy when other countries are saying, well, they're just invading a sovereign nation, and so it's, again, to its perspective. And we were talking about too, and I think it's really important. I want to make it clear, because on the last podcast we were talking about a certain group of people, but I want to say something, and this is from my perspective, okay? Because I hear it a lot of times, people talking about, the groups of people in our society, particularly the white people, and the reason I say that is because, and like we were talking today, Ruben, as Daniel, I grew up the only brown face in an all-white community, and I lived that way for many years. And the people I lived around had no filter for me. There was always, most Mexicans do this, but Daniel, but you're okay, so they didn't hold it back for Daniel. They and then not only that, when I was in college, I lived with 4 white girls and a white boy. And then I lived with 3 other, I'm immersed living with white people all my life. And I'm here listening to the podcast, people talking about, oh, white people this, white people that. And I'm just like, and I'm living with them. I live with them. I'm at school, and it's just so, and like we said, Ruben, you guys didn't grow up with that perspective. So to me, they have an interesting way of looking at the world, and they see the world like I said, and we were talking about it when I was a kid and I played soccer. They didn't let me play against the soccer team because it was all Mexican, and our team was mostly white, but me. And they said, hey, well, Daniel, you're Mexican, so we ain't going to let you play in this game. Today, if that happened, and I was saying, I could go get a lawyer and say, hey, they had racism, and they because I was Mexican, and they'd say, hey, Daniel, you have a case. But back when I was growing up, no way, I couldn't have said anything to anybody. It was no one going to say, oh, well, Daniel, it just was a different time, a different place. My perspective was different, and I mean, I talk different, and so it's just amazing to me when I hear, and I was giving the example that if we were talking about the barrio and growing up in the hood, and all you heard were people that went to the barrio sometimes, had talked to a cholo one day, and that's what you're just talking about. And it's like, man, how distorted is the perspective? You know what I mean? And so that's what sometimes I struggle with. It's like, man, because I grew up with people, mostly güeros, mostly white people, and not all of them were evil. A lot of them were super nice people. And like, you learn, that they're not all the same. Just the same with raza, and same with Asians and Africanos. You just, a person who's getting involved and feeling and learning and, just doing your thing, you experience that diversity, and it's your perspective based on your experience,
or whatever doctrine or philosophies you were trained in. That's why this is a step-by-step process, right? Listening to this podcast, at the end of this podcast, you're not going to get a hold of your perspective unless you do the work.
Right. I mean, Ruben, it's like you said.
It's hard work to get a hold of that and understand it. It was easy for me because I trusted our ceremonial ways. I trusted that I was walking into a dark room, but in that dark room there was love. I felt it.
Right.
I didn't need to see it. So in this other perspective, there's an evil man and a good man.
Right.
And the evil man's trying to destroy the good man. But the good man's so good, he gives his own life. See, that's already telling us, whoa, we just got to be humble. And even if we're good at heart and some evil man defeats us, it still overpowers, right? Because he gave his only begotten son. He gave his love to everyone on humanity. And now everybody's saved if we believe in him, right?
Oh, we got a question for you in the chat.
Okay.
Is our perspective the way we learned to perceive?
That's why the Toltec call the life of the first attention, which is the first perspective, but then you have to take hold of it, which is the life of the second attention, where you're gathering all the information that was planted inside of you and now questioning it, challenging it, because you can't just go, hey, walk down this road and you're going to be good. Believe me, you're going to be good. And you're going to go, well, wait a minute. Where is it going to be hard? Is it going to be a hill? Is it going to be by the ocean? Do I have to swim over? Do I have to climb over anything? There's nothing of that kind of direction, right?
Yeah.
It's more along the lines of swimming in an ocean and then learning how to swim really well, knowing when to rest and keep going, keep going, keep going. This is what it's like to break the life of the second attention. Getting a hold of your perspective is what I am calling it, right? And it's a process. It's a process. It's a process because we don't hate white people. We don't hate white people. We don't hate any people. We don't like colonial, elitist, basically bullshit that you just come out of your own fucking ass and trying to shove it down our throat, calling it truth. This is challenging the perspective. Right, Daniel?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's interesting. Okay, it's our because again too, I'm going to add this another thing to our perception is our experience. And I've often quoted Einstein. Einstein says the only real knowledge is experience. And so, and this is what I refer to, and I really always enjoyed when Arturo comes on and he says, "Oh, he was saying, oh, well, the white man gave us everything. Everything we have is what they gave us." And I thought, okay, I grew up, with in this society thinking, oh, we're the greatest, and I'm just like, okay, thinking about that, and so I went to the university, and when I went to the university, a lot of my and I went to Cal Poly, in San Luis Obispo, and a lot of people, a lot of my peers, they were sons and daughters of military and law enforcement. Okay, and so a lot of these people had a perception of Daniel that was just twisted because of the color of my skin. That to them, I looked like criminals. I was a criminal, and so a lot of them had said to me, "Well, at first, Daniel, we kind of didn't think you were cool. There's something about you." And I said, "Okay, well, why'd you think that?" They said, "Well, just I don't know." I said, "Well, they ultimately no, you're not a bad guy." And I said, "Well, no, I'm not." But dude, that you would say that to me, like, how come I end up being a bad guy and you get to come in and be the judge of that? And this is an anecdote I'd shared with you, about. So I have a roommate and we're living in this house and he tells me, "Hey, my family's coming to visit for family week, and by the way, my brother, he don't like Mexican." It's like, okay, so this is my house and your family's coming to visit. And you're telling me you're being cool with me by letting me know, "Hey, man, my brother don't like Mexicans." Okay. And what's up with your brother? Okay, well, he's kind of, he's a little different. Yeah, he had a coke problem, and he probably stole money and hawked a lot of my mom's jewelry and stuff. But we're still trying to work with him. But yeah, he don't like Mexicans. It's like, okay. So Daniel, now I'm in my house, and this family's coming, and he's telling me ahead of time, yeah, they don't like you. It's like, okay. So I was telling my nephew goes, "Oh man," I said, "Fuck that, man." And I said, "Babe, bro, I can't do that. This is my roommate. Okay, I live with this cat. I live with this cat, and I've lived with him for a year, and now we're gonna live together for another year. You think I'm gonna tell him that?" I said, "Man, sometimes you gotta learn to just squash your shit, and you just gotta say, man, and you just swallow it." And turns out the guy, same shit I always heard growing up. "Oh man, in Mexico says that, but Daddy, you're okay, man." It's like, all right, man. Thanks.
That's
It's so it was just, but that's me. And you could have said, "Oh, Daniel, you hate like that." No, but that's not in me. It wasn't in me to hate that guy, and it turned out to be his brother liked me. It's, "Hey, man," but I mean, it's just those type of introductions shouldn't even happen, man. Why should I be having to prove myself? And I'm here in college, and it's like, man. And this homie went on to be an officer in the Air Force. You know what I mean? And like. Another one of my roommates is a CEO and a big, at Cal Poly, Ruben, I was toe to toe with the elites of the society today. And truth be told, I don't really talk to anybody from college anymore because I turned left and they all went right. And I don't hate them. Cal Poly is a very perspective of they're the best. And if you don't look like me, then I'm not hiring you, And so I didn't know that until I got out into the real world. They're like, yeah, I don't think I want to take orders from you, sir. Like, okay, it's just that's shit they don't tell you, But today it's different. But it's a collection of my experience. But I could be hateful, but I can't, no, because it's not, like you said, it's not in me. Because if you really want to help people, you got to give them patience and love. And like I said, in that situation, it just turned out good. And that homie eventually, after he graduated, and he said, "Hey man, I work with Mexicans, and they're like the hardest working people." And he said it to me like he had just discovered a great discovery. And I just had to say that's evolution. I allowed him to just find his way because people hate me till they get to know me, and then they're just like, "Oh wow, I guess you weren't that bad."
But then this goes back to the perspective, right? I mean, I just been recently having interactions with individuals that point out things about me.
Right,
Like, like
right,
they're
right.
cool. No, they're really
No,
good.
no, it's good, Ruben, because when people
They're
are
really
honest with
wait.
you,
They're
you
they're
know,
they're really good ones in the sense of like the way I look is the way I talk, the way I live, right? There's no and that complete thing allows me to hear a person say, "You walk with so much presence in this indigenous way." But I'm not trying to do anything other than be myself because I got hold of my perspective to view the world without having to worry about someone else's perception of me. You have to do what I do, talk how I talk, have the discipline that I have for me to even look your way. It's kind of like this. They say an eagle, the only bird that can peck an eagle is a crow. It jumps on the back of an eagle and it starts pecking it, right? And the eagle just kind of moves his head. He doesn't bite, he doesn't lunge. He just kind of, then he gets into the air and he starts to fly. And he flies so high that crow falls off. In other words, match the discipline that I have, match the perspective that I took hold of in this very big ocean that we call life. Use my experience to be the skill upon which I float on this understanding and stand with power and presence. All of that comes with understanding the perspective. Because if we just see a news article or a news, well, not an article, but a news broadcast, and whatever they said in those 20 minutes or 15 minutes with someone talking in their ear and you believed it, right? They have a thing in their ear, right? And they're like, hey, talk about this. Hey, do this. Hey, do. And the person's like, blah, 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 blah. And they're like a little robot, like being controlled by someone else's thoughts. We need to get hold of it. How we do that, how we measure that, is how much discipline you have in your life.
Right, right.
How much discipline do you have? How much perspective do you have hold of? Or are you reading books or listening to TV shows or doing this so that you can have at least a guidance in this big old ocean that we call life and reality? It comes with a lot of bullshit, like Daniel said. Someone going into an environment, and Daniel was already to help. You're here because we're letting you be here. But you're cool, right?
Well, you know what it is, Ruben, too, is again, I think I was sharing with you my mother, it's God, I love my mom. Both my mom and dad had a real active role in my upbringing. But my mother, bless her soul, had the ability to make smart things easy and to make dumb shit hard. Okay, let me say that again. She made smart things easy and dumb things hard. So, and that's part of just nurturing, mijo, nurturing you to do the right thing, not forcing you, but making, because the Mexica, they make you follow they follow the dance because it's the best dance.
Mm.
It has the most style. It has the most flavor, and so they're not just giving you something, but they're making it the best of something. And I think about it as like today, I have a new customer. I was telling you on Wednesdays I have a new customer, and for some reason, Ruben, I don't know, man. I take that house and I just take pride in it. I just go in there and I just look at it and I take pride in my work. And so it's something that I just enjoy it. And so if we go through our life like that and we take pride in what we do, whatever it is we do, like the way when you get in the studio, and you start to write your lyrics, and I mean, it's just a beautiful, when you're in your, you know in your zone, in your indigenous space.
Mm.
Because for you, it's music, and so, and we were talking earlier, what
Oh,
we're brought to do, and so,
right. Yeah, it is in music. That's where it's really focused. Like it's almost like if you heat up something and that point becomes red, that's like the studio work. But you're still whatever you're heating up is still your life. So
right,
I'm still a part of that. Whatever it is that I'm heating up, my studio art is the red point, but I still have another part of that point that's connected, which I live every day. You know what I mean? Like
right,
I
right,
try not to stay out of that space is what I'm saying. Sometimes it gets focused and I write a song or I write some poetry, but it's always solid. It's always that. That's what I'm talking about. People need to really focus on their perspective, their own inner self, right? Because
right.
that's what it is. It's your inner self, your collection of experiences that you put together and said, this is what feel this ocean of life is,
Right, right.
right? This is what I feel this ocean of life is. But, I'm going to really learn how to swim in it.
Well,
You
yeah,
know?
what's interesting you say that, and I mean, I always talk about my life and the people, and truth be told, I feel so bad for my nephew, and I hope he doesn't get too upset, but he had a mishap a couple weeks ago. He had a car accident. He rear-ended somebody, and so, man, I said, "Mijo, you fucked up," and he's, "Oh, I feel," and I said, "But mijo, you're just gonna begin to feel this," and he's been feeling it, and so he goes to work. He got a job at Whole Foods. So he was working. He was going to starting his shift at 5 in the morning, and so the past couple weeks, I said, "Mijo, man, you know what? Don't worry about it. I got you in the morning. You could ride the bus back, but I'll take you in the morning." And so in the morning, I get up, right before 4:20 in the morning. I burn my bowl, and we take him to work. And but I take great pride in getting up early and taking him to work because man, he's going to work. And it's like I remember my mom used to do that for me when I had to go do. She would make it easy for me, and I thought, man, I'm just going to do for him what my mom did for me. And so man, I just feel for him, and as the guy, I don't know if any of you got your first car accident, it just messes you up, man. Your car's in the shop and they're just lollygagging. And so it's like for me, I see his experience and I feel for him. And Ruben, in the world, people say, you know what, the world sucks and I'm gonna fuck it up harder for you, or they say the world sucks and I'm gonna help you. It's one or the other. And you and I, we choose to help people. We don't choose to fuck people up, but other people do, and that's their path. But that path is like I always said, leads back to three times back. So if
Right.
I help people, it's going to come back to me
But
three
then
times.
what you're describing is the metaphoric version of hell. Right.
Maybe, like,
It's a metaphoric version of hell because these people are in this loop of like, I gotta hurt you.
oh yeah, that's a
It's just,
terrible feeling.
you
I
know what
mean,
I mean? Like you're
yeah,
saying, that's what you're saying. Like I'm sure that the people that talked to you in college that said, Daniel, you're cool, they were insulting you.
I know. Yeah,
They were insulting. They were not your friends. They were insulting you. They had this perspective that came with manifest destiny that was brought here by the doctrine of discovery,
Mhm.
right? All this is the same thing, just changing form. But you're judging it by the name and going, oh, wow, this is not the same as doctrine of discovery, manifest destiny. But yet both of them had a religious reason to take the land,
Well,
right?
I think people rationalize all kinds of reasons for their own, I don't know if it's misgivings,
Just
their own
just like what's happening now.
yes, yeah,
What's happening now in that part of Mother Earth? Someone saying, I have a religious right to this land. No matter what, I'm going to bomb you. I'm going to kill your children. That's the truth.
right,
That's the truth. And it's just like the same scenario when you're in college and you're like going, no, you're cool, Daniel. You want to know why you're cool? Because there's not 100 of you going, fuck you guys. What the fuck? What do you mean by that? You know what I mean? Like there wasn't enough backup there. You
but,
know what I mean?
the
So
true.
so
But Ruben,
but then now we're in that ocean of thought and judgment. But let's take hold of our perspective. Because the perspective is, well, why would I argue with anyone who doesn't take the disciplines that I have? That's not a waste of time. Just like the eagle moving his head with the crow. It's a waste of time to try to fight this bird. he can't even fly half the height of my flight. So I'm just going to cruise on up. And he's going to have the illusion of winning me. But unless he can breathe the same air that I can breathe, then you're not at this level. This is when you get hold of your perspective. This is what we all seek, because we get in scenarios like Daniel got into when he was younger, and he's going, no, I'm intelligent, just by being Daniel. No, I'm intelligent. Watch, I'll show you. And he's looking around, there's nobody else there. But not like, it's kind of like in alienators, right? If I go, no, we're powerful people, right, Daniel?
Right.
We're powerful people, right, Sky?
But Ruben,
It's of us saying it.
It's once you believe in yourself. Because the thing is, man, I think what it is that when you really believe, because there's one thing about saying, oh, you could say it, but once you really believe it, it's like you said, it carries a resonance. You can feel an energy.
Did we answer the question that the viewer had? Did we answer that question for you? Of course, the first attention and the first perspective is what was given to you, right? It's automatic, right? What do we? I'll prove it to you. A, B, C, D. Everyone went through that. Everyone went through that same training. That's the first perspective.
Right.
The first perspective, one that's planted inside you, one that says, this is a chair, this is a microphone, that is a hat. His name is Sky.
Right.
That's the first perspective. But at one point, you start to see the illusion. That's the second attention. Now that you see the illusion, what disciplines how are you going to strategize and maneuver? This is why I try to take my perspective away from good and bad. Because if you take away from good and bad, then it's a challenge. And you either meet that challenge or fail.
Right.
And I haven't failed. I failed, but I got right back up, because there's no such thing as fail. There's only doing. You think we build a pyramid just because we got it right the first time? Well, I'm sure we failed tons of times until we got it right, until we kept doing it.
Right.
We got hold of our perspective and said, no, it has to be perfectly aligned. It's going to take a long time. Yes, it's going to take a long time. But let's keep going. And that's what's been happening ever since they landed on this land.
Right. And
We still keep going.
It was interesting, Ruben. I think, and I was sharing with my nephew. My other nephew who's at Berkeley. We're talking about him. I said, look at the Huichol people. Look at any indigenous group. And I said, what clothing have they worn? How have they looked for the past 10, 20, 30, 100 years?
Right.
Many of them haven't changed. They're in the same mode. Now, you look at us in the United States. We haven't worn the same shit for the past 5 years. There's nothing in this experiment that's been the same. You look at the 10 years since the inception, it's never the same. And so every other place in the world, they're similar. And the thing is, it's just interesting. Again, too, this is an experiment. And it's an experiment, just the concept of, think about when they get here during winter time. They don't even know it's not the time to be in the East Coast. And then even too, Ruben, kind of bring it back to all the tornadoes, man, in the middle of the country right now. Because if you talk about your perception and knowledge, you don't build where people never built before. Okay, you don't put houses where there's no remnants of houses there, and that's something that these people came here, created a whole new experience, a whole new language, a whole new information system, starting from scratch, starting from zero.
There's another reason why they live there, why they live in the tornado alley or whatever, because they will sell snake oil to anyone. They don't care if it's in Tornado Alley. They know that.
Right.
It's the cheaper land. It's a cheaper house. Hey, man, you bought your house for $30,000? Yeah, I bought my house for $30,000. Hey, you want to buy it for $15,000? They know, goddamn, it's going to fucking be destroyed the next year. The land's worth cheaper. Then they do it again. These are con men.
But Ruben, people are dying.
There's no logic to why they're building on Tornado Alley. The logic is there's a evil enough person that's conning a person who doesn't do the information or gather enough information to say, you can't do that to the natives. The natives be like, damn, that's Tornado Alley. Why would I live there?
Right.
Why would I pay 5 cents for that house?
Right.
Right?
But those are the people that are in charge, Ruben.
Those are the people, but they're not the people in charge. Those are the people that found people that were stupid enough to buy that land.
Right.
That's not the people in charge. They
But-
were stupid enough. They didn't have a hold of their perspective.
Right.
They didn't take into consideration that we are living in a space or go, let's look up the past 20 years of homes here. What? 20 disasters?
No, but Ruben, it's
choice.
true. One of the homies says it in the pod, I mean, on the chat, but it's true. If you design your house in a way that can withstand those things, but they're not trying to have you live in a house that lives forever. They're not. You know, it's like you said, they would rather you pay insurance. But here's the interesting thing, and it's interesting. Insurance is now possibly becoming a thing of the past. You know, your home insurance. They're not doing it no more.
Well, that's a part of the 2030 agenda where you don't own anything. How can you insure something you own? Right? That's a perspective.
I guess. I mean,
We're don't get caught up in what they're taking away. Look at the big picture. And to look at the big picture, you can't be this way. You need to be this way.
Well, how can you be from somewhere and you just keep moving though? You know what I mean? People, because I could trip out that, you know, I know my neighbors because they haven't moved, you know, and in this country, a lot of people move. I want to go to a better house. It's like, it's kind of against our human nature to move. You know, it's, you go somewhere and you build roots there, and you know, you like every other country in the world, people don't move.
But we don't have the attitude of independent thinkers, or like we are not wild animals in a jungle existing together with the humans. We are cattle, and things are built for us, and we get fed certain things. If we don't take hold of our perspective. You see, everybody who's in the cattle farm don't know they're in a farm.
Right. Well, I think that's a big part of it, Ruben, is to know.
So
I think,
I'll suggest. Remember, you were telling me that we should suggest some things, right? Like, I'm going to suggest an animated movie.
Okay. Right. We're talking about right.
Called Animal Farm. Go look up Animal Farm.
I think it's Orwell, George Orwell.
Yeah, George Orwell. I don't know. Animal Farm.
I think it's George Orwell.
Look at Animal Farm.
But yeah, because we were talking about, I was going to suggest that, you know, when I come on, I'm going to suggest 3 books. Because I know, you know, me, I was forced to read a lot of books. And, you know, but there's some books that I think were actually worth reading, okay? And so, you know, I think, the first one I always suggest was Day of Destiny. You know, and Day of Destiny was the Aztec calendar book. And so Day of Destiny, that's by John Meany. That's a book that I think, you know, if you can find it, and it's pretty, you know, it's fair. It's a fair, easy to get on Amazon, and, you know, a good used book. But that one tells the story of the Aztec calendar and everything that's up in the sky. You know, everything that, and John does a really good job of teaching a lot of Nahuatl terms, a lot of examples of science, and just a really well written book. You know, and that one's really helpful. And then another one I was going to suggest was Drink Cultura by Jose Antonio Burciaga. And the reason I like that one is that Drink Cultura, it looks like a Coke sign, but he was somebody who just was able to really get a good perspective of culture and describing what it was like to grow up Chicano in, you know, in occupied Mexico, you know, and so I thought that was a good one. And I think last but not least, I know Fidel Rodriguez suggested this one, but I highly recommend the Malcolm X autobiography. So that's my 3 for this week is Day of Destiny. And what was the second one?
Drink Cultura.
Drink Cultura. Thank you, Sky. And the last but not least was
The Malcolm X, the autobiography of Malcolm X.
I love that you're listening, Sky. Thank you, saving me.
I'm gonna have my 2 cents about books, because books are good. They're great. They're references to truth. You know, an author took the time to do the research to do it.
Hey, and truth be told, Ruben, be told, you struggle reading books because you have dyslexia.
No, but I love taking them to the dome, like audiobooks.
No, but brother, I just think that's your.
No, but audiobooks are the same thing as books. It's not that.
Right. But I'm saying that
reading books is because of the dyslexic part of myself. But I take, you know, audiobooks to the dome all the time, and I don't do a lot. because I don't really like to indulge in other people's opinions about what they've experienced. You know, I try to take my own experiences through the practices that I've learned by myself through my own blood understanding, you know, breaking the genetic understanding that I had by having optimal health. So
Right.
books are great. Books are amazing. And that's what I'm saying. Like some books changed my life. You know what I mean? And we'll save those little nuggets, you know, as the podcast progresses.
But I just wanted Ruben to say, because I think sometimes when your perspective of books, people don't understand that, like, man, you struggle reading, you know, and said, okay, now look at, I was a teacher for many
But
years. And I just know, I could tell my student was like, man, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just there's something in their learning, you know, repertoire is just skewed.
right.
And as a teacher, I understand that, man. And it's just hard for me when people think that you don't want to learn. No, it's just that, and Ruben, a lot of people have that, what you have, you know, and so it's just,
Well, of
as
course,
a teacher, you know.
it's gonna be an issue because one right. I do struggle with reading. Doesn't mean that I can't read.
Hey, but brother, I did too, man. Oh my
Wait a
God.
minute. Wait a minute. Let me finish. But here's where I took hold of my perspective and said, I can really work on trying to read, or I can understand what the hell I'm reading. What is this book? See, Daniel's really, he went to education. He got an education. Sky got an education. Armando almost got an education.
Oh, Armando got it.
I'm a fucking high school dropout.
School of Hard Knocks.
But you know what? I'm 5 credits shy of my diploma. I actually walked with my class
There you
in
go.
2002 at Downey High. I just skipped out on summer school because I was just, you know, banging broads and doing drugs and blowing all my settlement money because when I was a minor, I got hit by a car. The courts held on to my money until I turned 18, bro. I was living a lavish life right out of high school. And then I was the youngest hire for Coca-Cola in the Downey branch.
Wow.
So right out of high school, I just got a job, faked it till I made it. You know, I always said I had a diploma. But honestly, these jobs don't even fucking check.
Right.
Yeah, but brother,
I've gotten so many corporate gigs.
Yeah.
And, you
But
know.
your experience. It's your experience, right? I mean, you speak from
Absolutely.
experience.
So
You know?
great. But so
Anyways,
let's go back to what we were talking about. Saying
Thank you, Armando. I like that
about
shit,
books
dude.
and reading, but great. Thank you, Armando. That was very helpful.
Experience, man. It's why
I
you're
have
here.
no degree.
These books, like
And
yeah,
not
I could-
necessary.
look, I had to take hold of my perspective because when I decided to go down the indigenous path, it didn't involve books. The bigger steps I took were actual experiences and ceremony. That's not a book. That's actually going and doing.
Right.
Now, you could read tons of books about it, but until you get yourself in there and do it and participate in very ancient, sacred ceremonies, then that's what started changing my frustration about not being able to tackle why I can't master this version of, because it came from a European thing. Look, in my perspective, the first multimedia tool was the Bible, because it had to be handwritten and you had to believe in the story, guiding the narrative, the point of view. And then they started making all these other ideas, and now we have a phone, and now we have TV shows, and now it's the same thing. It guides your point of view. Here's the difference from wanting to learn from books, quote unquote books. Amoshlis are not the same as books. And I'm going to explain why. This is my perspective, right? Books are mass produced, right? There's no love or spirit inside that book. There's an opinion and a reference to truth, but there's nothing sacred about it. You're believing that those words are sacred, but when we made, am I saying the word right, Daniel? Amoshlis?
Yeah.
Amoshlis? Those books were made out of certain materials. These materials were considered live teachers. It was a certain tree bark because that tree gave us information and we put it on the bark. It's not a word. It's not a story. It's not a man's, oh, yeah, let me write this and this one day and Jesus Christ and whatever's. No, we have to use the bark from this tree that gave us this information. Now we have to use the color of this flower. We have to gather the petals of this flower, dry them out, create a paint. What I'm trying to describe is they're taking the spirits from all these paints. They're making them out of natural things that are alive and put on a sacred book. But it's not a book with words. It's a spirit.
I like this comment right here from Balingui. He says, did God write a book?
That's what they're trying to tell us. That's what they're trying to tell us when they say, read the Bible, right, Daniel?
Well, yes, but Reuben, Jesus, okay, the one God Son, was illiterate and didn't write anything.
So there you go. Boom.
Couldn't read either, you know.
So there you go.
Was it knowledgeable?
But did you guys get what I was trying to say about the book? How we consider that wasn't a book. That was us trapping the spirits of these elements. This particular flower, this particular tree, this particular seed. These things are organic materials that get created into pictures.
I've just recently was checking out a bullshit ass podcast not too long ago, and this guy kept reiterating that if you don't live a biblical lifestyle, that you automatically fall into the evil category of things. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, that's so fucking bullshit, bro. What's a biblical lifestyle?
Well, how about this though, Mondo?
Right, Zero?
What's
Well,
evil?
that's nice of someone to be able to do that to you. Oh, you know what? You're fucked up. Right?
No, but
You
hold on,
follow Jesus Christ.
Right.
but
Instead
evil
of
is
saying-
a lie.
Look, here's the difference between that perspective that you just talked. Today, a brother came in that's from the area. You guys know what I'm talking about.
But
when
no
I
one
say that.
against, that fucks, if you're a Christian, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, but this is a different. Like you had your story about someone going, "Oh, you're a sinner. You're going to be bad. You're going to go to hell, and you're bad." Right? Where someone came into our shop today, who is a part of the lifestyle that's a part of East LA that has been there for a long time that can be dangerous. I'm not going to say it, but you know what I'm talking about. And I go right here, bro. He had a Buddhist book. He goes, man, I like coming here, bro. I just want to read my book. Are you cool with that? And I was all, yeah, go, brother. Sit down right there. And I told him, right here, Malinali, there's no judgment. Everyone's welcome here. And we all know that everyone makes mistakes. So, read your book, bro. There's no charge. You don't have to buy anything. We're all family here trying to heal. And if you have that energy, then you're welcome. Versus, you're fucked up. You didn't fucking read the Bible, bro? You have a fucking filthy life. You're going to go to hell.
exactly. Yep. That's how.
But all
They
I said
usually
to
feel.
him, was what was told to me in ceremonies. That's not a race thing. That's an understanding, a perspective, getting a hold of a perspective, a collective understanding of consciousness, understanding that these elders that have done very strong ceremonies sacrifice their time, sacrifice their eating, sacrifice their bodies to bring a message to the community of love. And not one time did I ever hear that African, that Asian, that anything. Because we don't speak in those terms. We speak in the terms that anybody that's around that circle that got to that fire, that got that invite and felt the love of the universe because we're collectively praying, you're welcome. That's true life. That's like, there's no African, bros. There's no Asians. There's people who have good hearts, and they're there, right there, praying with you in that ceremony. That's all that exists. That's how we defeat white supremacy. To defeat white supremacy, you have to take all the bricks off of it. And guess what? African's a brick. Asian's a brick. Filipinos a brick. Everybody's a brick. And who sits at the top? The whites.
Yeah.
When we have that perspective, when we hold that narrative, but when we come together in ceremony, when we come together to heal the earth, to heal our people, and to welcome anyone who we know made mistakes, but still treat them like our brother, and still have a boundary, to know that right there in that space, it's sacred. There's no judgment, but there's also no distortion.
Right.
That's why there's no judgment. Because we're not trying to distort, we're trying to heal.
Right.
What do you think, Sky? Right?
Yeah.
What do we do at Malinali? We're welcoming everyone, right?
Everyone is allowed at Malinali.
Right? Homeless?
Homeless.
Anybody. Right?
Do you go to church, Sky?
No, I do not.
Have you ever been to a church?
Yeah,
Like, have you been to like the church program or like?
Yeah, I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic high school, so I'm pretty familiar with the church and with the
Church camps.
Church
I remember
camps and
those
things
days,
of that
dude.
But I think, yeah, it is important to understand everyone has a different perspective. And I think it also goes into like not getting caught into someone else's perspective, because we have those reactions, right? Like,
Sky, have you ever attended Bible studies?
yes, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been invited to some Bible studies, and I'm always a person that's always been open. You know, I feel like there's always something to learn. You know, from someone's perspective. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to agree with it or believe in it, but I think.
Hey, can I chime in here today? Somebody invited me to a Bible study.
Yo, Zero, throughout your journey, has anyone like genuinely invited you to like a Bible study?
Bro, I grew up in the church.
Oh, that's right.
I grew up in the church. My grandmother used to take me to the church. And even at like a 5-year-old, I always... Look, I'm going to tell you a story about my children, right? Daniel, this is when you were around at the big house.
Right.
And I think it had to be Sholo. Sholo runs in the house, right? And Olean's right behind him. Yeah, it had to be Sholo because he was more open. He's all, Dad. Who's this guy Jesus, man? And he's like, and why does he want to burn us? Like, I don't get what he wants to burn. Like, who is it? And I was all, look, sometimes people get taught a story. I'm telling this to a 5, maybe 6-year-old. Sometimes people get told a story. And that story is their story. And it's okay to have that story. But I took you to the Tatawari, to the fire. I took you to my Uncle Al's house, who went to go Sundance and has led the Peace and Dignity journey to very sacred spaces. I go, that's what we understand the fire to be. What they understand the fire to be is their story. And let it be their story, and we're not judging them. But no one named Jesus is going to ever burn you. If you put your hand in that fire, you will be burning yourself. That's all I had to say to him. You know what I mean? And he got it. And I think he got it because he never brought it up again. And what ended up happening was that his friends were Jehovah's Witnesses. So they right away, they're going to hit you with that, indoctrination. Fear, whatever. But we knew how to handle it. We didn't have to say, oh yeah, those fucking guys. Nah. We had to take care of our own children and say, hey, you know what? This is their story, but I can only show you this story. And maybe when you grow up, you'll follow this story if you like, because I can't make you do anything. What's going to lead you to Tatawari, what's going to lead you to what I believe in is love. And love doesn't come with you have to come here and you're going to braid your hair and none of that.
Hey, but you had too, though, Ruben. Your kids were very criado. You know what I mean? They were very innocent. They believed people. You raised some. I mean, because that's country me out. I think that we don't talk about that. That you've raised 5 kids, brother.
Mm,
Like, man, that's an accomplishment. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like, it's just the things that we complete in our life. Your greatest creation are your children. And so I think for myself, I don't have children, but I was blessed to be a teacher and to have that experience. Because again, dude, I bring the tonal machotl here because I want to say, when I studied in Mexico, one of the first lessons that the professor taught, the maestro taught us, first was that there was no word for God. Okay, they told us straight up, there's no word for God. The whole concept of indios is a concept that we're without God. We're the people that came without God. But I wanted to point out the center of the Aztec calendar, the center of the Tonal Machotl. This is called the Nahui Olin. So Se Ome Ye Nahui. So this is the Nahui Olin. So it's got Nahui. It's got this many squares. So each square represents a color, and the colors that it represents are red, yellow, black, and white. So those represent four people, the colors of people that inhabit the turtle. You see the turtle? And so we live on turtle's back. And so for us, as a Mexica, this is our perspective. This is where we begin, because if you see, this kind of resembles a human face, kind of our face. So it's like, you don't need to see that to think, well, is it a face? Well, yeah, this is because my perspective, we came from the sun, and so this is our creator, our center. And so in our language, to is mine, and my nana, tonal. This is tonal. This is my creator, is in the center. And so our perspective begins in the middle. And if you think about it, when you stand up, your belly button is the middle, and your arms and legs stand out. And if you see, Da Vinci did a drawing of this. It's kind of interesting. I think he did it after 1519. Does anyone know why that would be? Well, because after 1519, they learn all about this stuff.
right.
And so again, Jews, this is the middle.
But also too, they were persecuted for studying stuff like that,
Well,
right?
yeah, because it was truth.
Because I heard that Da Vinci had to do it all fucking in secret, and like you couldn't be like, the church would see that and go, "What the fuck are you doing, man? Like this is forbidden to question or to even think this, right?
It's almost human nature question.
This is the same thing that like people think that the Holy Crusades ended, but they didn't. They just changed the name. They changed the name to modern war or what do they call that when they bomb innocent people, collateral damage, right?
Yeah, but those are all. Think about it, Ruben. Those are all
Collateral damage. You know what it used to be called? Called massacre,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What is massacre? Can you look up massacre, Armando?
Well, I mean, think of it too, Ruben. The only time it's a natural disaster is when people die. Otherwise, it's a natural occurrence.
No, when politicians or war people or general talk, like say right now, everyone's going, okay, well, they're bombing this part of Mother Earth because there's these individuals called Hamas, right, that are there. But you're killing everyone else around it. That's collateral damage.
A massacre is an event of killing people who are not engaged in hostilities or are defenseless.
You see? That's a massacre, right?
Yeah.
But now we're calling it collateral damage.
But I mean, also, do think about it.
Or whatever they're calling the death of a massive amount of people, mostly children and women, just to be clear, right? Whatever they're calling that, before in the 1800s to about 19 something, 80, 90 maybe, it was called a massacre. It was called a massacre. This is the point of view. You need to take back the perspective, because when you take back perspective, then you take back power and choice. Power in your choice. I choose not to believe in that way. The repercussion of what's going to happen is that people are going to turn around and never be like that ever again. Keep pushing the envelope. Keep pushing the envelope. Well, you think people are just going to automatically go, yeah, that was cool. That was just collateral damage. Those are children, man. And we know because it happened to our children. right? When they came in, the Spaniards, what they do? Cut the belly open, smash the kid in front of the mom, right? But there was no cell phones to document that. The same thing. You know what? Since we're talking about this, Armando, can you try to find the president, the person that was going to run for president of the United States, signing bombs that are going to
Nikki
go
Haley.
direct? Huh?
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley.
Hey, but I was gonna say somebody asked me a question, and I didn't go to college after high school. I didn't think I wanted to go to college. I ended up getting a job teaching PE, and it wasn't until the Puente program, the Puente project, got me to move from junior college to college, and so it was quite a journey that I had taken, you know. But I think I was always destined. I
If
think
you could find her, like, there's a picture of her, like, signing the bomb. This person. Are you sure it's her, Daniel?
yeah, Nikki Haley. I read that article. Dumb shit.
Oh,
She was talking mad shit about the fucking chimpanzee, and then now she supports him. Like those people are just. This is what you're talking about, Ruben. They're just people that. I mean, if you think about it, okay, now.
No, but what I want to point out, or what I want people to see, is her signing this bomb. There you go, right there. Her signing this bomb. Look at that. Okay. Now, let's take hold of the perspective. Can you pause it for a second?
look at what she wrote too. Finish them, America. Israel always.
Okay. Boom. That's their perspective, right?
That is disgusting.
Yet,
Disgusting.
and this
Well
is coming
said,
from
brother.
someone from the United States, right? Where it's the land of the free, home of the brave, equality for everyone, right? We have civil rights, right? Yet we have a person that's pretty much doing Nazi acts. That's an act of a Nazi. Killing innocent people in massive amounts is called a massacre. Look it up. Look it up.
Yeah, but Ruben, I think they're the people of war. They came here. All they brought was killing. It's all they ever do is kill. They don't do the work. They just kill you and take your shit. You know what I mean? You think about it. Is it in our government, in our
They
world?
don't kill you and take your shit. They kill you, take your shit, and now you have to believe in this.
Yeah, but if a cop kills you, he goes home paid that day.
Yeah.
That's the real. Those are the facts.
But as long as he's defending, believing in this, and this is what? In the holy name of God.
Well, which
The
is again,
holy name of God, in the
which is
holy
an
name of any.
extension of their caca, man. They just came here and think about it. We're not. They tried to tell. And they try to tell our stories that we were a warring people and we ain't like them. We didn't kill a bunch of people like that. And as much as people want to say that, no, we didn't. And you don't have, you know, there's no evidence of it. We'd have been doing it when they got here. If that we were like that, we'd have killed them when they got here, and we didn't, because that's not what we do. I mean, it's kind of like you said, you and I, we're not haters. You know what I mean? We're not. It's just not what we do. You know, it's like, because even then, like on the last podcast, they were talking about guns, and I kind of tripped out. I thought about, you know, I wouldn't tell somebody to not have a gun if you live like in the hood, you know. But at the same time, what are guns used for? You know,
like I said, though, it's like LA Natives, Los Aslan podcast is not about changing anybody's perspective. It's about inspiring you to get hold of your own perspective.
And to challenge.
Sky. Yeah, Sky.
yeah.
What is your preference of belief in terms of creator? What do you study?
I study. Well, actually, I don't study. I just practice. It's called the Tao.
So you practice the Tao, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's just as powerful. The Tao, you practicing the Tao in that way, because I see your spirit and I see how you interact with humans, and you having your way is very cool. I like it. I practice the Sweat Lodge. That's where my medicine lies. Right? But we're still sitting at the same table.
Absolutely.
And we still have the same vision and the same collective view that we don't want to write our names on bombs and then go, yeah, well, that was too bad you were there. Why didn't you fucking move? Right? That's what that's saying right there. That fucking picture right there is saying, oh, too bad for you. You should have fucking left. Stop being around Hamas. Well, what fucking Hamas? There's nothing here but children. Oh, who gives a shit? It's collateral damage. And we believe it.
Well, just look at the two perspectives, man. This is the United States, and look, you saw what Mexico was doing. Mexico was throwing shit at the embassy, and this is the United States. You've got a woman here that's shooting for president, and this is the message she sends out.
Exactly.
And people talk mad caca about Mexico. Mexico's a messed up country. Man,
This is
you
not
know what I
about
mean?
liking America. This is not about liking America. I want to be very clear about what this is about. This is about the innocent murder of children.
Right. Good point, Ruben. But that lady right there she's putting because think about it, there was American munitions in that the I guess they fired upon a refugee camp, which is what they've been doing basically. But they found that those munitions that were landing in that camp were American munitions. I've known this for years. Like I said, you go to college and you learn this shit, but it's like you wonder, man, you feel like you're by yourself. Now, how do you stop this? And now it's like, man, the world's beginning to say,
You
hey,
stop this by getting a hold of your perspective, because when everyone holds their perspective, there's a reason why our societies were so successful, is because everyone stood their ground. You think other families just folded to other families and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to fucking start growing corn right here. And you're like, nah, what the fuck? What do you mean you're going to start growing corn right here? I need to start a council. I need to resolve this issue. That's because he had rights. He had presence. Now it's like, oh, wow, they foreclosed my house. Now I got to get the fuck out of here.
yeah, that's crazy, Ruben.
Right?
I mean, that's
Because they don't take hold of their perspective, in my opinion. Now, this is a very difficult concept. And I want to make sure that I'm clear, because sometimes I feel like I'm talking to individuals, and I feel like I don't want to impose anything. And I definitely don't want to be over anybody's head. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that everything is clear about what I'm saying. This is just my view of things, my view. But Sky has his view, right, Sky?
Yeah.
It's not the same as mine, right? You know? And so does Armando. That's why we love him, bro. Everybody's welcome here, because no one has a race. No one has a religion. Everyone just has wisdom and love. That's what makes LA Native Las Taslan community. That's what it is. You get that perspective? Come. Because there's no judgment here. You study Qigong, you study Kung Fu, whatever. You just can't study white supremacy. You just can't study doctrine of discovery. You definitely cannot you cannot fucking come here with fucking manifest destiny.
but Ruben, think about the idea of just
And
white
everything that's
supremacy.
connected to that is American flag, government, policing, welfare, your political system, your educational system, your religious system. All of that goes with that. What I just finished saying. What were you going to say, Daniel?
I was saying, but none of our stuff is just brown or just red. You know, even in the circle, all colors make the circle. The concept of just white was never. There's really nowhere in the world that's like that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like saying, "I want a world where we all float in space." Okay, yeah. Well, can you come back to the Earth now? And because it's like you said, their perception is just weird as shit, man. Because it's like the world isn't about killing people and taking their shit. It's about learning, experiencing,
Right.
loving,
And
following
sharing.
your
And sharing.
passion, finding that, because it's easy to kill. It's hard to keep things alive. You know what I mean? It's just that concept, it's like just a lack of respect for life. And the thing is, I love life too much to engage in that caca, because it's like if you're gonna get in a fight with a pig, you're gonna get dirty.
The
You,
way the way I view it in my perspective is that when you try to dominate something, that's like an anthill trying to dominate a whole forest. But then in that forest, there's anteaters, there's monkeys, there's birds, there's all kinds of things that's the illusion that they can control this world. Since World War II, there has been a group of individuals who wanted to make it so that it's just white people, right? But in the narrative of good and bad, the bad guy lost. But did he? Did he? Because now we're getting closer and closer to something his vision came clear of. I don't have to mention his name, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, use your perspective. Did he really lose? Or did he shift the strategy? Because we're getting closer and closer to that world that he envisioned. Right? Because when they say you won't own anything by 2030, you think they're talking about white people? I'm talking about brown people. You can't own anything because you're a slave. You will never own anything. You're a slave. Well, there's no slaves anymore. There's no more plantations. What are you talking about? Yeah, they're called corporations. They're not plantations anymore. They're called corporations, right? And you're like, well, I don't work for Walmart. But if you're in jail, that's a corporation. So erase the perspective that plantations don't exist. They just changed the name. It's called corporation now. Be aware, take a hold of your perspective. Just because that's there doesn't mean you can't meet the challenge. This is where Geronimo, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Cuauhtémoc, Ticlawak, all these heroes come from this. Your life,
Nice.
Lawis. All our heroes come from that ether. Become that. You become that when you take hold of your perspective, when you line up your disciplines, and when you stay consistent. That was the true power of our people, in my opinion. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, I think you're correct, but I think let's add something else, man. This is what I trip out. Like when I was in LA with you, like seeing all the people in the morning going to work, man. And what I liked about it was, man, like in the traffic, seeing how all the raza was like this, one after the other. It wasn't like angry; they were just flowing like ants. And I like that because our people have a cause, have a reason to go to work. Or it's like Mondo was saying that he's just busy, and it's true. I'm busy. Like when you got things going on, you're busy. You ain't got time. You know what I mean? To go because I was telling my nephew, I said, man, being able to go protest is a privilege. I
Right.
I don't have that privilege because I got to take care of my dad. I got to go pick up some shit. It's like, and I'm glad that they're making that message. But it's for some of us, it's just not our way. You know what I mean? My way of protesting is to not spend money or resources on things that I don't believe in. And so that's my own personal way of doing that. But it's just you got to find your way because you got to make peace in this journey of. But again, it's like you're saying, and for myself. I feel good when I walk into my backyard. I'm in my garden, and then the hummingbird comes and it just kind of like messes with me. And then I think I've told you I have a blue jay in our backyard that's just very like it's our house, and that blue jay. And so if I feel fortunate to go outside of my backyard and get in touch with the things that a lot of people struggle to try to find, and I have it right there in the house that I live in that I own. And so I just feel blessed that the years of work that my dad put in, all the things that's coming to fruition, and that I think of you, Ruben, and I think of I'm pretty much your oldest son. You know what I mean? How your oldest son is now living the life that I lived. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like the evolution of our people, and it's like your son knows what it felt like to be me now.
Mm-hmm.
To go to college, to go live on. It's like these are new perspectives. Our people are evolving within the system. Because I don't think so much the
He
system.
talked about it. He talked about it. He talked about how difficult it was to well, at least the first early years where he felt other people had more support than he did due to our situation. We were just getting out of, my company failed and didn't fail, but I had to transition from that life into what I'm doing now.
Life's a struggle, Ruben, and like
Yeah.
that made him. I mean, because your kids are great individuals, man, and successful, and on their way to do good things. And so,
Right.
I just really, I feel very, proud of your kids. I mean,
And don't think that like that's what I said. I introduced them to Tatawari. I didn't make them follow.
but you can't though, Ruben.
And
You
so,
can't. That's the
and,
difference between us and them. We don't
but
force our people.
but the way I look at it, my perspective, even though he followed a road that I didn't, because I just started clinging to the philosophical aspects, the emotional connections, the personal experiences of what my culture was, and that was truth for me. Getting a degree and getting a good job and getting all that stuff wasn't my reality. I had to overcome that. I had to skip college to become a CEO of a company that made $2 million.
Hey, but
You
Ruben,
can't
can I tell you
learn that. You
Yeah,
can't
but your
learn that
kids
in
don't
college.
steal, Ruben. Your kids don't steal. Your kids
Right.
are good fucking kids. And can I tell you something that's interesting to me? In a family that, man, some of their family, they probably do steal, Ruben. And what's the difference? What makes your kids just say, no, I'm not going to take from them. I'm going to make my own shit. And to me,
Well, it's
that,
this.
that
It's
that's the
this. It
real.
was it was an actual conversation that I had with my son. We're walking down the street, and he goes, "Dad, man, everything you did in your life, you did it. Like like you said, I'm gonna play in Mexico City in front of thousands of people,
Right.
and then you did it. And then you said, one day you're gonna own a dispensary, and you did it. And then you said, we're gonna own a restaurant, and we did it. It's like, what do we do? And that's what I'm trying to tell you in terms of the educational road. My son decided to read books and understand the perspective that came from colonialism and that understanding. That's cool, fine. You wanted to challenge yourself that way. Guess what? Over there, Tata Wadi's waiting. Whenever you're ready. You wanted to challenge yourself that way? Good. I challenged myself that way, and I lost all that money. Right? So cool. Great.
Money's meant to be lost, Ruben.
Yeah, but I didn't mean but I didn't, but some people take that very devastating in a natural sense. If you don't know how to not be a millionaire anymore, like that takes a lot of discipline and spirituality. But I traded the millions for spiritual millions, right? Letting go of that illusion that I'll ever be that. I don't want to be that. I don't believe in mass-produced books that are references to truth. I believe in the amoshlis that were made out of sacred flowers and sacred plants. Even if it's a picture of that amoshli, I feel the energy because I'm Malinali, and that paint was made out of plants. My sensitivity level is up at an all-time high. This is the perspective of our ancestors.
Right.
You're connecting to energies that are beyond your physical vessel. You're connecting to energies that our ancestors collected for thousands of years. What I mean by that is plants. They collected plants for certain paints, for certain remedies. This is our perspective. It was easy to look at that and go, oh, wow, all I have to do is trust my heart. All I have to do when I trust my heart, and if I get hurt in any way or distracted in any way, all I have to do is learn the lesson and not repeat it, and I'll be growing. This is the perspective of our ancestors. There is no good and bad. There are lessons learned and unlearned. You need to take hold of what your lessons that you're learning. Because because I kept repeating lessons, right, Daniel? We talked about it earlier. I'm not going to mention what it is, but I had to learn that lesson until I learned the lesson.
Well, but sometimes, Ruben, love clouds your mind, man. Love clouds your perspective sometimes. I think because there's some things that there's a lot of the unspoken. Because really, Ruben, to me, I also think too, man. And this is where I take pride in, man, that none of our people are thieves, man. And like, fuck, you don't understand. And sometimes it's just sick when family steals from family rather than someone they don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, where does that come from, Ruben? It comes from them. They bring us
Comes from colonialism. Comes
right
from slave
because
mentality.
everything that you can get taken from you, because it's your intellectual property. It's the things that
Right.
you value that are real.
And I want
value.
to press pause for a second, right? They take things, right? But now, Sky, in the youthful music of today, isn't it to take your girlfriend or whatever, and like popular, it's like, oh, I took your girl or whatever. Like, that's the most precious thing that we used to cherish back in the time of the Mexica was our woman, right? Protecting her, not submitting completely like that, but, having a duality of it, like a sharing of something, right? An understanding of two creatures that will never understand each other. That's what the beauty that comes out of it. That's why the Tonal Mashio is what it is, because it has male and female into it. It's not good and bad. It's female and male. The perfect combination for life.
Right.
And in the modern music, you're saying, oh, I'm going to steal your girl. That's devastating. That's devastating for someone. And we're acting like it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Look
but
at
Ruben,
the perspective we're in. Look at the perspective we're in. The youth is in. I'm pointing out that. That's all I'm pointing out. Right? Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It is something that's kind of valued in pop culture now, I guess, in music.
And it goes back to 2030. You will own nothing. You will own nothing means you won't even own a relationship with a woman because everybody's independent. Everybody is not in the oh, you're thinking masculine. I think non-linear. What do they call it? Right? Is it non-linear? Right? Where I'm not a gender. I'm not anything.
Oh yeah.
There are people that think that.
Hey,
Right?
but it's perspective. You said it, man. It's perspective. I mean, because look at, I try to explain it as a gardener. Okay, I grow cannabis. Okay, so I use that as my perspective. I have male plants and I have female plants. If I got a female plant that's acting like a female, and then at the end all of a sudden busts out to be a male, that's gonna ruin my garden. You know what I mean? It's just it again too. But those are when I studied in college, those things happen, but they're so like in terms of maybe 2 to 3% of the population.
Mhm.
So, but again, too, these things happen in nature. The Mexica, they really revered when nature did something different. When nature did, today we would say it was somebody with a disability, but the Mexica saw that it was nature making them a unique perspective for everybody. And so I just think it was neat the way they saw the world. And I mean, the tonal macho for me is just a way of looking at the world, and it's like we're not haters. It's not this hate's not part of this cycle. It's not part of the circle, because it just doesn't work. Because even if you look at the four colors that work together, we hold hands to make a circle. It's not just one color. Everything works in unison. And so, um, it's something that how do I say it's like we work together, and it's all of our cultures make a synthesis of the collection of all that makes our history and our knowledge. Because
But think about it. Like when you read a book, it's an individual perspective. That's like taking one little box out of that
right, right,
calendar and
right,
going, "Oh, I'm gonna read about this. That's what I'm gonna know about it." Right?
right.
But when you look at the Tonal Machio as an individual, you develop your own version of what that is and the connections of what that is. And if you study the sacred calendars and if you study the tonal, you'll find yourself in it
Right, right. Well, the idea, Ruben, is that you're
without
going to study
reading
this.
a word. That's my
Right.
point.
Well, you
Without
study it through your life.
reading one fucking word. There's no word. There's feeling, understanding, connection. That's what it is when I see that. When you point out things, and we're lucky that we know you, that you get to explain the concept of how it was made or what it means
Well, the
when you
beauty of
put
it,
the
Ruben.
symbols together.
Well, and if you think about the beauty of this, is it's kind of like an abacus or a tool, because, like your homie Masatsin, he didn't study with the classes or the things, the formal education that I have, but he's been studying it so long that he created his own version of this, and so he has knowledge of this. You know what I mean? And maybe his calculations may be different than these, but it's a tool that's used, and it's like that knowledge is true because you're using an accurate,
But
tool.
I don't think he's making his own assertion. I think he's grabbing information from certain
Right,
communities.
but you can say no, Ruben, but he looks at it and he's gathering information. So like I said, as you described it, you can do that over time because over time you look at it and you'll begin to understand it. Like I understand it better today than I did 20 years ago, but more so if I actually took it in detail. Because, man, but what I'm saying is that it's not a wrong perspective. You use the tool and through your experience, you present it, because there's so many ways to present the information here, and that's why there's never really a wrong way to do it, but it's the beauty of it. It's a living, moving representation of a lot of information. And what's too bad when people say, I don't see the numbers. Well, you just got to see the circles and the dots. Those are where the numbers count, they begin to start. And so, but again, it's as simple as you start with your fingers, and every square is 5. So even
And
around the circle is 20. So these 20 break up the 20 that are our base number, and then you go beyond that, the next one's 400. When you talk about the stories, because the stories coincide with the math, the math is
right,
random.
right. And can you break down the name once again?
For which
I know how to say it, Tonal Mashiach, but the to and the whatever.
Okay, well, tonal,
Right,
to is mine and na is my nana. So
right.
tonal, and then machi is going to be like the
Meshi,
philosophy. Yeah,
Meshi,
machi is like the
Meshi,
philosophy. It's like
right.
the 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 thought process behind it. Okay,
Okay.
and then o is always like the ombligo, not the ombligo. I'm sorry, the heart. Ko is like Yoli. Yoli is the heart. So it's
Mm,
Mexicayo, and so, and there's different words for it. There's Mexicayotl, there's Tonal Macho. It depends on what you're describing. Because you
right.
could also call it the Ilhuicapo mostly. And when you're doing that, you're just talking about the number counts. You're not talking about the philosophy. So,
Mm,
depending on what you're explaining. And so I teach classes in Lake Tahoe every summer. And I was going to throw it, I'll be teaching classes this summer again, and that'll be July 29th to August 2nd. And at that school, I do a different class every day, but all the classes continue well, just the idea of the Mashika philosophy. And so what I try to do from the first class is explain to them the perspective of our people, because it's like you're saying, we weren't a war people, and that a war is
And
not.
we didn't read, we didn't gather information from books to make this stuff. We looked at something like that, created our own connection with it, and started using whatever was taught to us. You know what I mean? Like
Well, one of the classes is Quetzalcoatl, right? And so we talk about an individual, a person that was called Se Acatl Topilzin Quetzalcoatzin. So Topilzin is the title that we give to somebody that writes the books, that does the paintings and the books. And
Mm,
so what you're talking about is true, because you're really going in detail that individual, because that individual, that's their art, that's their path. And so Se Acatl Topilzin was an individual that grew up in Tepoztlan and followed the path of, uh, he studied in Xochicalco. And so it's a life study that they do, and then the
mhm,
end of that study, they reach the title of Quetzalcoatzin, because
mhm.
they've learned all the information. So, but that particular individual would write the books. That was his, I guess, his perspective or his strength.
Right.
And
Or
so,
that's what made him special. Like he was able to
yes,
record what his path of
because
learning
that's an
was,
individual that they documented
using
his life.
using and it gets very detailed. And the reason I know about the paints is because I recently saw some sort of a piece of a documentary where they started explaining the Florentine Codex. And the Florentine Codex was when they grabbed the remaining Nahuatl speaking but Spanish speaking individuals and had them write this book. And they had to write Nahuatl and translate it into Spanish,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
So when they translated the Spanish part the way the Spaniards wanted it, but when they told the story in Nahuatl, since the Spaniards didn't know Nahuatl, they actually told the real story of what happened, right? So like
right. Well, again, to Ruben perspective.
In the Spanish version, it was like, oh, the saviors came in the boat and they gave them Christianity and everything, da da. But then on the Nahuatl side, they would put, no, these people came and they murdered us and they took our grandmothers and they started killing our children and this was the most horrific thing that ever happened. And now we're getting into the sicknesses because they were very dirty and their hygiene was filthy, right? Just like their philosophies, just like their currencies, just like everything is filthy,
But Ruben, they came with no women.
right?
No
So,
women.
so here's where I started tying in how important and how beautiful. And when we look at codices that are written, that are taken pictures of, put this into your perspective, is that the lady started talking about they would only use certain plants to color in the pictures because they were leaving the prayer of that plant in that book. This is what kept the culture alive to this day. And the true story of what happened to our people. How brave were they? How brave were they to stand in front of Spanish ruling priests that molested you, that took your land, that murdered your children, and still be brave enough to write the true story in that book using the sacred paints that they were taught. And I kind of got emotional when they started getting sad because the Spanish weren't letting them go gather the stuff to make the paints anymore. They
Well,
just wanted to
yeah, yeah.
concentrate on the ink.
What's interesting, Ruben, think of today when they were throwing that shit at the embassy. Think of how that is basically that same message saying, "Hey, man, already basta already.
Right,
Get out
right.
of here with that."
Exactly,
He said
exactly,
the message hasn't changed. It has not changed. It's
exactly,
the same.
exactly.
Different
How are
country.
we going to meet the challenge though? Here and it is, some of it is making a statement like they did in Mexico City by burning down oppression, by burning down the thought that you can have a made up story written in a book that pertains to a land that people already live on
Right, and calling it the New World.
and calling it yours.
Yeah, but Ruben, here's something you didn't say, but it's just I think it's really interesting. When you're talking about the codices and the paintings, okay, there's nowhere in the world where those colors exist. other than on those books at that time.
You see? And that's
These
why
are
they're
the
so
things that, like,
special.
I
But
remember
the
I gave a lecture.
materials that they were made out of, right? The materials that they were made out of were so sacred. So even when you see a picture of it, that's also Somok brought in a replica of one, right?
Right.
And it was
I have some too. And I think it's, man, they're really cool. The thing is, Ruben, turquoise and pink didn't exist in the old world. They're just colors that didn't exist, And I remember I did a lecture one time, and this dumb high school, obviously, I can tell you, wasn't of culture, and just said, "Oh, look at," he just took it out, totally out of perspective, and did not acknowledge that, like, these were people that had colors that at this time in the world there was no that color didn't exist anywhere else, and they just missed that all that information, and they're just like, "Look at they're torturing them," and like just the fact that what they showed, they were documenting. As you were talking about Napoleon, remember how Napoleon shows a picture? That's what you learn.
Mhm.
It's like that was when they began to start the first, Instagram type shit. Napoleon started to draw, the Revolutionary Wars and things he was going through, leaving a picture that was totally a fictitious version of what really happened.
Mhm.
So there was the beginning, and so,
Mhm.
but
And
our
then you
stuff,
contrast that with using the books or
yes,
any
with
kind of
with
murals
this,
on walls,
right? Because
right?
like I said, this is an instrument that can be used again. This isn't like, oh, this is because someone could use this and use it, and it's like you can't say, oh, that's right, because it's already order. This is the order of the universe. You take the tool of the universe, and like I said, you get people all your life. You begin to understand it. When I taught third graders and fourth graders, they would tell me, "Hey, teacher, what don't you think this?" I think, "Oh my God, I never thought about that." Because if you don't have a crushed perspective, the children see stuff here that we can't see, Ruben. It's a
But
you
but
gotta
I
expose it to them.
but here's where I believe that it's a lot more powerful and why it's so important to break the perspective of being tied that information or truth lives in a book that is printed by someone who got edited and all that shit, right? I'm just pointing out the things that create books, right? Versus something that's sacredly done in a prayer, right? That even a picture of it can affect your soul if you understand the elements of it. Why is it so easy to understand by itself? Because it's simple. It's math, science, art, spirituality. It is you. It is you. It is us. That's what it is.
Yeah, but no secrets, Ruben. There's no secrets.
Exactly.
It's all out front. It's all like, and that's the thing, man. Once I learned that, I learned that in college. I used to hear people go, "Don't be telling people." Like, what do you mean, don't be telling people? Like, you're tripping. Like, you know what I mean? It's the colonized mind. It's like the enemy tells you, keep your enemies close. Like, fuck,
Right.
dumbass. You know what I mean? It's these things that you're told, and they're just bullshit. It's just, again, dude. But that's part of. Well, we go back to religion. With religion, you have faith, and I tell people, I don't need religion. I have facts. If I have facts, I don't need faith. Why would the
Mm.
fuck would I have faith? I have facts. I have things that I can rely on. Those are the things that are gonna move me forward. Those are the things that I can believe in.
But the facts have to be rooted in experience because those are true facts. They're not in things that you read. They're
No, no,
things.
of course not. But I mean that. But you can go in a book and find,
The fact is that we experienced it. Even if we didn't experience, like say for instance, we went and we read a book about buried my heart in wounded knee, but went to the land,
hey, that's next week.
that went to the land, touched the land, saw the grave sites, felt the energy, felt the experience, then read the book again, just to kind of get the reference of truth, right? Because it is an individual that sat there and it turned into something that said an editor and said, "Psst, what the fuck? You're going to talk about killing kids? Nope. Get that chapter out." That's what I'm talking about when I'm referring to books. Unless there's no editor involved, unless
Well,
that person wrote a book, because editors go like this, that's not an interesting story. Take this part out and blah, blah, blah. And now you have a bestseller. See, this is what I love about Don Miguel Ruiz's book, is that he wrote it that way with strategy, bro. Like he went up to the editor and he kind of went, okay, cool. I know you're going to do certain things. I can't talk freely, but how can I still convey the message
right.
that's meeting the challenge? that's changing, taking hold of the perspective, because the perspective is your reality. If you live in the reality where the world is fucked up and all this danger and blah, blah, and none of your perspective involves meeting the challenge, this is what I love about our culture, is that they paint pictures and they go, this is the challenge that's in front of you. Use the tools. We took time to make them. Take your time to learn them. Pass it on to your loved ones. Simple. But it takes discipline, and it takes getting a hold of the perspective. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, I mean, I have to agree, but I'd also say too that, I mean, and you brought it up, but "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee" by D. Williams. I mean, you jumped the. I was going to say for next week, but when I had a fourth grade class and I had kids read that book, and I had them read different chapters and then read the class.
Fucking fourth grade?
Yeah, yeah. Because the thing is,
That's cool.
we're supposed to do Native Americans, okay, Native, and so they wanted us to do missions. That's bullshit. They didn't. That's bullshit. Like, why would I teach them bullshit? But here's the thing. So D. Williams, like that book is he was writing down, he was interviewing the natives and then just writing down their answers, and so it was a very good perspective, and each chapter is different. And what you're saying right there, it's in that book. And I mean, honestly, truth be told, my kids came to tears. They said, "Man, teacher, what happened? Why'd they do this to them?" And some of the kids said, "Hey, teacher, they look like us." And I was like, "Yeah."
Right. No, and those are Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee is one of the most banned books everywhere. They won't
You're
really
kidding. I didn't know that.
because of the stories that are in it.
Yeah, but it's the
You know,
truth. I mean,
it's the truth, but we don't
fucked
live
up
in
what
a
happened to them.
we're living under Christian rule. Is that the truth? No, that's a made up story brought by someone who had an agenda of stealing land, raping women, taking children. That's what we're believing. We got to break the fucking perspective.
Yeah, no, Ruben, of course. But I mean, it's interesting. Like, I remember sitting in church reading the Bible. I was bored. And, man,
One scooches in, like Buried My Heart at Wounded Knee, but how many other stories exist, Daniel? How many other
Ruben,
stories?
they're in books. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like I just suggested books that I felt would make kids, feel. And
Absolutely. And that's what books are meant to do. They're just a feeling. Oh, wow, I felt bad
Yeah,
about
but
that.
it's up to you to find a book that's worthy to you that you're going to share with others, because it's like, it's not real, at least in my opinion, it's not good to suggest a book that you didn't read. You know what I mean? And it
Oh,
just,
for sure.
no, but I tell you, brother, I've been online, hear people saying, "Oh, you suggest a book." I said, "Oh, well, what did you think about this one, that?" And they said, "Oh, it's easy to catch people lying, man." Because the thing is, once you stop lying, it's like
Yeah,
you
but
don't lie anymore.
that's what I'm challenging. I'm challenging whatever you read in that book isn't valuable. It's only valuable if you go experience it, if you go actually talk to an elder that was connected to that, or you know what I mean? Like it's just a reference to truth.
Well, I think
Truth
of it
is
like I think of it like the Tonal
Sure.
Machor, Ruben. It's a tool. It's like it's
Exactly.
a tool. And
Exactly.
you could use it. Because here's the thing, and it's just what bothers me is when somebody does this out of their love, and then somebody in another group takes that love and ridicules them. Hey, this is because I mean, for me, my teacher, or I'd say the most foremost knowledge of this one is Arturo Mesa Gutierrez. That guy right now, that's the guy on this. He's written so much stuff on this. So if
He's
you
a
got
really good author, and
but if you got
he's a maestro. He's a
but
maestro.
Ruben, there's people out there, and I don't like to say his name, but this one guy, Curly guy, he said, "Hey, that master's full of shit." Then continue to say that I'm full of shit. So one day I'm gonna meet that guy, and I tell you what, I have no problem. 500 years of fucking bullshit of our people. You don't do that. You just don't do that. You don't do that. And so the things to me, and those people talk mad shit about me too. And okay, you know what? As I said, you got to learn to just another time, another place.
No,
You got to
the
learn.
way I kill arguments about those type of things is go, what is your practice? Like, what do you do? What do you do? I know I do something, and I don't want to keep repeating it over the podcast, but I know what I do practice wise in terms of like even the tonal machiot, right? The tonal machiot for me, I'm an artist, right? Entrepreneur, right? And I come to figure out that the sun is the principal deity for all, or the master energy.
Yeah, the source of energy.
the source of energy for all dreams. All dreams, right? If I'm a flower, when I see that sun come out, I open up my leaves or I open up my petals and I start to receive the master of all dreams. So that's why I make it a point to wake up at sunrise, to see the amber color, to program myself to receive the master of all dreams. Not that it's like, oh, it's a God and all that hoopla, but more of a science and unknowing, which is a Mayan perspective of knowing the truth. That symbol or that energy changes the flower into wilting away, dying, and coming back again. It's mastering the dream. What's different from me in that flower? There's nothing different. I just have hands and feet and eyes and a heart and an imagination. That's what we follow. What you're holding in your hand. They metaphorically put it into stone.
And think about Ruben, they had to hide it because they were destroying all their shit. They had to put it upside down. Like they knew. I mean, these fools ain't about this, so they had to just flip it upside down and leave it there until the 1800s it was found. Wow. I mean, I'm just saying they knew. Like they've already had book burnings before. That's why they did everything in stone.
Of course, we lived through shit like that. It's like why are we so? Why is our perspective our way? Because we went through those cycles again. And when you mentioned Arturo Mesa, I went to one of his workshops in Tijuana because he can't.
Yeah, I remember you said that. I already said that.
And what he said was, learn the cycles.
Yes.
When you learn the cycles, then you're aware of what's happening. And when you're aware of what's happening, you can make a move.
Yes.
But it comes through observation and patience.
Right.
And understanding the math, the science, the spirituality, and the art, which is in Daniel's hands right now. That Don Al-Mashiach.
Yeah, it's thousands of years of information here. Why do we
It's not words, it's feelings, it's colors, it's images, it's programming your DNA to go back to the time where we understood the function of the thing that brought all dreams to reality.
Right.
Don Al-Mashiach.
And the thing is, Ruben,
that's what it's called, the Don Al-Mashiach.
And the thing is, and that's it. The literal meaning is that it's the heart, understanding the philosophy of the heart of the sun.
Wow.
That's
exactly what I described.
Yo, we got Daniel, we got Zero, we got Sky. Make sure you guys like the video, comment on the video, share the video. Confirm your subscription to the channel. We would really appreciate it. Lit show. Make sure you guys visit us next week, 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Always a pleasure.
Zero, any last words?
Well, I want to shoot it out to Daniel. Daniel, thank you for coming on, bro.
Hey, man, likewise, brother. Always being passionate.
I felt, the last podcast, I felt really good about it. And this one, I felt good about it as well. Like I said before, disclaimer, I'm not trying to change your perspective. I know nothing. I only know what my view of the world is. That's it. If you accept it and you can be my friend, and then if I get to know you, you can be a part of the community because you don't just come into this community.
Right. Well, you and too, Ruben, I would say too, that as a Mexica, when we resonate from our heart is when we reach our maximum experience here on the planet. To resonate from our heart, because then we're a reflection of the sun.
Perfectly said. Thanks, Daniel, for being on the show.
You guys, man.
Sky, any last
Always
word?
A pleasure.
It's always a pleasure as well.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on. I know sometimes, Sky doesn't get to input, but we're acclimating everybody. Mondo, thanks for producing the show, brother. Like your commitment to LA Native Podcast and just your input on our show. Like I said, no one is judged for anything, in your life experience and your honest life experience, man. I think it kind of brings the reality to our show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So remember one thing. You own your perspective. If you follow the narrative, they own your perspective. And that comes in every aspect of life. Every single, the religion, the math system, the country you believe in, the religion you believe in, all those aspects. If you follow a narrative, someone else is guiding. But when you hold your perspective, then it's yours. And if it's yours, then it's yours to point in whichever direction you like it to point in. I point it to observation of nature. That's where I pointed my perspective towards. And when I pointed my perspective towards that direction, I found the Tonal Mashiot, I found the Amoshlis. And I stopped reading the words about them. And I just started looking at them. And I started connecting to them. And then I heard something years later that said, this is why they look this way, and this is why their colors are this way. And that just solidified the wisdom that it gave me. I didn't need to read about who read that book or who broke it down, because it's me. It's my abuelos. It's my abuelas. They left them for us. Take hold of your power. Take hold of your perspective. We'll see you next week. La sukamatli umeteo